Welcome to Verify in Field, the millwork podcast. Your host, Jacob Edmond, CEO of DuckWorks, will be interviewing experts in the industry to bring you insights and knowledge about the latest trends, techniques, and challenges in millwork. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and join us as we explore the world of millwork. Here's Jacob.
Hey, everybody. Today we have Josh Sharp. And Josh is the owner and president of Spectrum Woodworking out in Oregon. And he has a unique background. He's got into the millwork industry in the last handful of years and comes from the construction industry before that. So I'm excited to hear him share his background, his kind of origin story of coming to millwork. Thanks, Josh, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. And I think just to get started would be great if you give a little bit of an overview of your background and just your journey to owning a woodworking company out there in Oregon.
So it's been a little bit of a long story. I have a family history in construction. I think my great-grandfather started the trend in the construction industry in the 50s, primarily in the Midwest. And as a result, like most family businesses, you could get it on the ground floor from doing anything and everything, just where your family allows you to fit in. And so I got a pretty early start in the construction trade, primarily from general contracting background. And over a couple of career changes and job changes, ended up in the Pacific Northwest by way of Michigan. And so that's what landed us here and all the fun and excitement.
Awesome. It was 2019. Was that when you bought Spectrum and got into?
That's correct. So I acquired Spectrum in 2019 from the original founding owner, who was at retirement age and looking to make an exit. And like many businesses, he had a business broken and listed his business available for sale. And I was in the market and hunting around and stumbled across it.
Yeah. Were you in the market specifically for a millwork company or just something related to construction? How did that process work?
That's a good question. I was not looking specifically for woodworking. I was looking for a construction-related business. A lot of my experience prior to Spectrum was in the commercial roofing and building envelope industry. So I thought I would gravitate towards one of those types of businesses just because that went to the industry and it was comfortable. But because of my background in construction, I like all things construction-related. I find it all very fulfilling. And no, I was not looking for a millwork woodworking business.
Obviously the opportunity presented itself, and 5 years in now, it seems like you're still running strong. What has that process been like adjusting to, obviously you're buying the company, learning this new niche of the construction industry? Are there things from your experience before millwork that you've been able to translate and apply, or things that you didn't expect?
All of the above. There's a lot that I didn't expect. I think probably the most unanticipated challenge with getting into the woodworking industry, not being a woodworker, is the complexity of the industry. We primarily service the commercial institutional markets, heavy on tenant improvement, which spans a pretty broad range of medical office. It's very complex. You and I, when we had a chance to talk at the AWI convention in Phoenix, talked about the complexities of it. And so I think the biggest challenge is when I came on board, it's kind of like, oh, this is a construction business, thinking of the install side of the subcontractor portion of the business. This will be easy. I know it. I'm servicing the same customers that I've serviced. I've been a general contractor. What I undervalued or underappreciated was the manufacturing component to what we do and the complexities therein. And so I've learned a lot. I think a friend of mine once told me, who owns his own shop, you don't really feel like it's yours until about 5 years in. And I didn't know that at year 1, year 2, year 3. I'm 4.5 in, and it's starting to feel like it's ours. And really influencing that change, figuring out what parts of the business need to be worked. My history before here certainly has played a critical role in the overall understanding of the industry. There's a lot of guys in the industry that have come from the general contracting background, and I think that's very important to understand how projects work at a base level, how they're designed, how they're put together. Like you, I think you had mentioned in a podcast I had watched, you always thought you wanted to be an architect. I think a lot of people want to get in the industry from that. And I wanted to be an architect too. My dad was a general contractor. contractor and had architects on staff. And so I always wanted to be an architect. So I do have a love for the industry. And, there's nothing more fulfilling than see a raw piece of dirt turn into something amazing that's going to be there for 100 years plus potentially. So it's very
Yeah.
fulfilling, but I've learned a lot, and there's a lot still to learn.
Yeah, for sure. In your journey through acquiring a shop and entering an industry or a niche of the construction industry that you weren't in before, are there any specific resources or friends or people that have been instrumental in that journey of learning? You mentioned you have a friend that's a business owner. We met at the AWI convention. I'm sure you've met a lot of contacts through that. What has been invaluable to you in that your learning journey and understanding the complexities of this industry versus what you thought it was?
That's also been another challenge because having not come from within the industry and having a group of peers that I was working with or communicating with, or even had contact with, I didn't know who the competitors were in the market when I bought the company. We bought into the energy platform pretty early on. Within 6 to 8 months of me coming on board, we made the switch to energy, and giving them a good plug. They do a great job at the peer-to-peer communication behind the scenes stuff, which is extremely valuable. So that's been my gateway into creating some relationships within the industry. Of course, having friends and peers that own other businesses certainly has added a lot of value to what I bring to the table, but still working on building some great relationships. Like you said, meeting many other people and bouncing ideas off one another. I am fortunately and unfortunately put the cards on the table. I like to get to know people and know processes and know systems. And I think that's important in being able to be vulnerable and share my story with people and challenges and in hopes that I can benefit somebody else. And then also have them benefit me. I've learned a lot, certainly from, some industry professionals that have been very helpful in contributing to the success that we've had.
Awesome. Do you find that there's anything that you have leveraged or maybe not even consciously, your experience before millworking, coming in as an industry outsider? From my perspective, I find a lot of people who've spent their entire career in this niche industry have some ego. I've got the experience, I've done it, and what we do is very hard. And you probably got some response like, yeah, you think this is easy. It's just like a construction company, but right.
Totally.
Was there some humbling or an ability to be humble that has been valuable for you? And like, hey, look, I'm learning, I'm new to this, I'm willing to learn, versus maybe somebody who would come in and just insist, hey, this is easy, I can do it, and fall on their face.
Very much. I think it's a two-way street. I think the advantage of me not coming from within the industry has given me a whole different view of the industry as a whole. And of course, like we mentioned earlier, it's been very eye-opening to the complexity and the working parts of the business. But we're one of the only subs and trade suppliers that actually has to manufacture everything before we install it. And so obviously that adds a whole different level of complexity on top of things. But I think one of the advantages I have not being a woodworker is I don't get bottlenecked up with the woodworking,
Right.
which I think has been good because it allows me to bring a different perspective to how we operate business and how we create change in the direction we want to go. Of course, having a group of people, our team here that have 10, 15, 20 years in each individual experience is invaluable, but I'm pretty confident they've learned a little bit from me too. At the end of the day, the quality matters, the product matters. So obviously it's important and we're providing a valuable service, but really what are we providing for our customers is the question. And I tend to have a different answer on a lot of those things than your typical woodworking, owner, industry professional would have. And so I think that gives us a little bit of a unique advantage when we go to market and how we approach our projects, which will continue to contribute to our success.
Yeah.
And so
drill it into that a little bit and you share as much as you're comfortable, but
sure.
Because I agree. I think that there's probably more that you've leveraged from your experience outside of the industry than maybe you even realize, or maybe you thought about this, but you're introspective and thinking about, obviously you're going to build on all your experiences, but are there things that you've brought and maybe even changed that wasn't how the company did things before and now you did, and that they thought, well, that's not how we do things in millwork. And you said, why not? This works. And I'm leveraging, whether it's a process or contacts or just a way of thinking about things that is unique from your experience outside the industry.
Yeah, I think for starters, I'll go back into what I was talking about, is not thinking like a woodworker. I think thinking like a woodworker just results in bottleneck thinking and getting too caught up in the details. Obviously, everything we do is predicated on detail. The devil's in the details. But assuming quality and price are similar across the board to a certain extent, or depending on the unique job, it's really just thinking about what do we want to offer? How do we sell jobs? How do we communicate with jobs? Do we actually know what is important to our customers? So really looking at the big picture and not getting caught up in the detail. And I don't mean a demeaning way, but you're on the engineering detail side of the industry, and you can
Mhm.
see what kind of paralysis that can cause when we get too caught up in traditional processes and systems. So here, since I've been on board, all we've done is pivot and change and tweak the model, and we're continuing to do that daily and weekly to fine tune our offerings in our system. Because at the end of the day, we're a manufacturer. If we're not thinking like a manufacturer, I think we're doing ourselves, our customers, and our business's bottom line a disservice. So really, it's getting out of the mindset of we're a cabinet shop into we're a wood manufacturer. We have processes that very much mirror large manufacturing companies, and we need to embrace some of those principles, and we need to be willing to change. I think most of us, we're all based on patterns, so traditional systems. And so I think when you break those patterns and systems and challenge them, that's when things get really fun. And that's what's been fulfilling to me. I didn't think it would be easy to come into this industry. It's been a lot more challenging than I anticipated. I think that's good. It's been eye-opening for me. I think from an owner's perspective and president and somebody that is actively involved in day-to-day operations, it's important that we don't have blinders on. And that's been something that I've tried to focus on. The whole point of having blinders is there are blinders inherently there within all of us, and making sure that we're not getting too caught up in the little stuff and not focusing on the big stuff.
So, coming from a construction, being a contractor, a GC before, obviously, I assume you have some insight into their mindset now that they're largely your customer, right? As GCs.
Yep.
As mill workers in the commercial side, our customers are generally a general contractor, right? And they're subbing out all the different trades. And a lot of times we're bidding competitively, you're bidding competitively against other mill workers. So I think you're nested in what you were saying there was, quality all being equal. Because I think a lot of times as woodworkers, when you get caught up in the woodworking, our differentiator is our quality. We have experience in quality. And that is like just the baseline that our customer, the GC, or even the homeowner or the architect or whoever expects. Yes, there's different manufacturers that are capable of doing premium versus monumental versus high-end stitched veneers, but there's multiples of manufacturers that can do any of those things. And that level of quality, kind of the expectation. Bad quality can disqualify you, but good quality is just a base expectation. So the differentiators, as you were alluding to, is something else. What's our unique advantage?
Yep.
And thinking about a GC, they're not coming and saying, I'm going to pick this mill worker because he takes the time to spline and miter fold this, whereas this guy doesn't. They don't care, frankly. A lot of times there's a baseline. They're expecting you as the woodworker to be the expert and to give them quality, even if they don't understand what it is. But they're going to decide between you and your competitor based on price or service or a couple other more intangibles.
Yep.
And so I assume you're consciously thinking, I'm evaluating our offering as if I'm thinking of how the customer's thinking, which is, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I expect this. What's going to be different? Do you find that that's a conscious thing you're constantly thinking about, or has informed your decisions on your direction for Spectrum?
100%. We talk about it daily. Just this morning, an hour ago, I was having a conversation on my board right here. What you can't see, the number one thing in to-dos is identify our unique offering. And the things that are not in there is price and quality. Again, quality is important, but a variable in quality differs from customer to customer, even within the same industry. A law firm or somebody's corporate office, they're going to expect a different level of quality than your more generic product. When I was in the roofing and building envelope industry, nobody ever sat with me and said, tell me about your warranty and how well your performance is. Everyone is, again, it's patterns. We're supposed to focus on the features and benefits, but really it's about getting to the root. What is our customer's pain point, and understanding how it is our unique offering is to decrease that pain and to make their lives easier. And sometimes GCs make that very difficult to do. The quality of drawings we get these days is 50% CD quality at best that we're bidding off of. But customers are picking color and grain direction if they even get that far into the details. That's why they hire architects and designers, is to steer them in a direction, but they don't ever come. Most of the time, they're not coming to us saying, we want the highest level of quality. Everybody wants the Rolls Royce and the Cadillac, but it's our job to read between the lines and understand really what do they need, and not overcomplicate that. Every business has a unique offering. A lot of times it's just-in-time manufacturing. Some it's big fancy jobs. I've seen all of this stuff, and I think our quality stands up there with anybody. But does that particular job, does every instance require that level of attention? And I don't think the answer is yes for most of our customers.
That is another aspect of quality that I think a lot of places I've worked and companies I've worked with struggle with, is being able to match the needs and the price of what that specific job is requiring in quality, and not just try to elevate every job to what our highest capability is. And so that, what I'm trying to kind of unpack and put words in your mouth a little bit of when you're saying getting caught up into being a woodworker, what does that mean for people listening, specifics? And one of the things I would say it means is, as a woodworker, when you take your craft seriously, and this isn't with anything, but specifically woodworking, is you take what you do seriously and you take pride in the quality of the work you do, right? If you're the craftsman. And so it becomes very easy to make everything better than it needs to be. It's very common. This isn't a piano, right? Or we're not making pianos, and pianos is that
the highest level of craftsmanship possible.
There's some kind of pride and ego, and we at Spectrum, we at DuckWorks, whatever, we don't do that level of low quality work. The market and your customers are buying different things.
Yep.
And so it's not that doing school PLAM casework is below monumental veneer. It's that you need to do the highest level quality of meeting the requirements of that job, which is, hey, do they ask for 3 mil? Do we put a round over, or do we not maintain our edge bander and the trimming looks terrible and we have burn marks, right? That's quality within still not saying, oh, you don't want PLAM, you need veneer, or you don't want particle board, you want this, right? And so that's where a lot of companies struggle, is one, understanding mentally, hey, this is what we sold this job. This is what they're expecting and buying. And we're going to lose money if we do premium work on this. And two, being able to have processes to triage things internally and say, this is a premium job, we're going to follow this process. This is a custom job, we're going to follow this process. And that's where a lot of the breakdown happens, is not even just the knowledge, but how do you train the people? Because it's a assembly line is what we do.
Yep.
To know, when I see this, that means this other menu option.
I think you nailed it. When given the opportunity, true woodworkers, and I think there are two different parts of the business. I think a casework line and then a custom side are two totally different businesses that get convoluted in the same shop. And so I think that adds a certain level of complexity. But I think if given the opportunity, all woodworking folks will default to quality, and quality means time. What do we never have enough of? Time and money. And our customers base everything based on that too, because that's how they typically pick. They don't come out and look at of course they look at our quality, but they don't come out here and say, oh, let's do a bunch of mock-ups for a lot of the type of work we're doing. It's really understanding how and where do we make money, and in evaluating each and every job. And that's been a challenge. Constantly educating our team members through the office into the shop floor is setting the expectations each and every time for the job to set us up for success. And that's hard to do. So it requires repeated messages and cascading messages throughout. If it's not something we're talking about each and every day and taking every opportunity to do it, we're just going to default back to the old way. Not that the old way is a bad way. It's just there's oftentimes a better way to get the same result. And so streamlining processes, you and I talked a little bit in Phoenix about shop drawings, obviously, talking about your services and some of the challenges we've had, like many millwork companies. We are not a shop drawing company. But when I came on board, it was, oh, we're known for having the best shop drawings. Okay, that's fantastic. Do we make money doing shop drawings? No. In fact, we weren't even charging for shop drawings when I first came on. It was just covered under the umbrella of the overhead. Well, we're not a shop drawing company. So, what level of detail is required to get it through the QC red line process and back to us as soon as possible? That is the goal. So what is good enough? And I know for the guys that use the tiny little measurement on the tape measure, that term good enough can be scary, but that's really what it comes down to. And obviously every company, if we're doing $2 million residential home packages, there's a lot more detail and care required and a fine tooth comb needed. But for us, it's what is good enough to get the product in and out the door as fast as possible and really enhance the offer of our partner GCs. And that's the goal.
Well, and I think ultimately what it boils down to is what are our clients paying for? What are they buying? And ultimately they're paying money to get some value in return from us. And a lot of people, will say, okay, they're paying for a product, but that's a product that they can get from a number of places, right? And that product doesn't install itself. That product doesn't get designed by itself. It doesn't get made by itself, right? And I think as woodworkers, a lot of times we equate value with quality, but we're really offering value in a lot of other formats. And one of the things you mentioned is time schedule, right? There's value in being able to hit a date that the GC or the client needs. There's value in efficiency. There's value in communication and all these other things. And so I think if we get stuck on quality, as you mentioned, that's not necessarily what's making us the company money and keeping you in business, but it's also not necessarily what the client is asking for. And remembering that shop drawings is a very easy example. The end goal, the product isn't the approved shop drawings.
Yep.
It's the product. It's the installed thing. And so everything before that is in service of that. And if it's not, because it's funny, lean is very popular in our industry. And one of the main tenets of lean is eliminating non-value added work.
100%.
And so if you're spending time producing a higher quality than is being paid for, meaning that then it's not adding value because it's not returning value to us as the manufacturer in price, then it's non-value add, and therefore it is not lean. And so there's these things that are a dichotomy in the industry as we focus on quality as woodworkers, but we're also love lean, but we fight it constantly in one of the main tenets of it. And you mentioned like the guys who read the tape measure. And so if you think any guys who use micrometer in any kind of manufacturing or engineering, there's a certain accuracy level, acceptable tolerances.
Yep.
And in millwork, a lot of times it's a 32nd of an inch, right?
Yep.
Whatever it is, you set that tolerance in measurement, but that tolerance could be different by job. And it literally is in the AWI's old standards.
It is.
And so I think as a company, you have to set your tolerance for quality, tolerance for schedule, for all these things, and meeting that tolerance, not exceeding it, not missing it, is the highest form of quality in reality in what we do.
I think understand your customer's true needs. Of course, again, back to patterns. They're all going to say that they have to get 3 bids.
Right.
They don't. That's just easy for them to make a decision. And we're not professional proposal makers. That we don't make money doing that either. And so truly understanding what they need. Yes, you mentioned the install of our products is the end goal, but is that even really what they need? They're just trying to service their customer and make them happy and get on to the next one. So what can we do to enhance that offering to ensure that they come to us more often than they don't, and not driven by price and just quality and all of the other things? It's solving problems. I would say our unique offering here is something we try to focus on is communication. And that communication means when we have to stand in front of the firing line and take on challenges, we do that. We answer the phone. And I also think we're easy to work with, which is a challenging thing, because does easy mean you're just a pushover? I think, being a mid-tier sub and supply is a very challenging position. If we're not creating true value, like real value for the customer, to where they're thanking us at the end of the project for coming through, all we really are is a bank with capacity. We as owners and woodworkers put our capital on the line to build stuff and get stuff installed for customers. Do they really appreciate, what we're doing? I think that's important. And that requires more of a sales mindset than a woodworker's mindset. We got to be able to sell ourselves. And in order to do that, we have to be unique because like you mentioned, there's an awful lot of woodworkers out there that can produce quality products. They can do it at a competitive price, sometimes faster and slower. So not getting caught up the woodworking side of woodworking is imperative for long-term success, and then creating a niche in the market for those companies that want to do that. Because I think most woodworkers, like you said early on, come from the woodworking industry. They don't know anything else. And so it's been fun to bring a unique perspective to a very traditional business and work through those pain points, which is something, like I said, we're doing each and every day. We're getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And it's not like I, as the leader of the team, are coming up with revolutionary idea. There's a lot of people in the industry that have paved the way for a lot of us younger owners or younger companies or people looking for a better way, realizing that there's a lot of knowledge in the industry. And I think people are very willing to help. We can all be competitors at certain times, but at the end of the day, it's for enhancing one another, enhancing everyone's businesses, and making it good for all of our teams, which I think is really the ultimate goal, is the big picture. What are we doing here?
So what has it been like transition and bringing in this unique mindset and shift and goals with your team? Because I assume you've inherited a certain amount of your team and buying a company that was already existing.
Yep.
Has there been a culture shift or kind of a change management process in, hey, this is now kind of where we're pushing towards, whether it's quality isn't the be all end all, or getting out of that woodworker's mindset, as you said, to what your mindset is going forward? How has that transition been culturally?
It's been good. I'm happy to say that everybody that was on it from an office standpoint, that was with Spectrum before I came on board, is still here today, which I think speaks volumes. I communicated early on what my vision was for what did I see in Spectrum? Spectrum had an excellent reputation and a solid foundation. It just needed a little new invigoration. I think some more ideas on how to change that. And change is difficult. I probably undervalued the need to create dissatisfaction with the status quo, that Cotter change model. I undervalued how hard it would be for people to shift. And so that's predicated that you have the right people in the right seats at that point in time too. We've done a 180 in the last 6 to 8 months, really. We've been working on this for 4.5 years since I've been here. But if I'm being realistic, we've really made some of our best movement within the company in the last 6 to 8 months. Really looking at the processes and systems and documenting those well, looking for repeated results, and then doing the management. So there's been a shift in all industries over the last 10 years away from management, and no one likes to be micromanaged, but the business does require management to move forward and succeed. And so I think keeping your finger on the right parts of the business, again, cascading messages constantly about what our end goal is and where we're going, ensuring that everybody is on the same page is important. And I think any good business owner knows that or comes to understand that at some point in time in their life of being a business owner. I'm happy to have come to that sooner than later. And so it's been challenging, but it's been fun. And I'm happy to say that the team that we have is embracing that change and understand that to be an outlier in the industry, and by outlier, I don't mean the biggest company, the most well-known company. My goal for Spectrum is to be the most profitable company we can be for the betterment of our entire team. And kind of looking at that piece of it too, just running a good, solid business. And then again, if something's not work, being willing to change it and tweak it until we do find a recipe for success, which can be a moving target. That our entire process from start to finish is full of bottlenecks and constraints. And finding those and understanding realistically what those are and what the root cause of those are is very tough to find. Because I think it's hard for people to be vulnerable. Nobody wants to say, I think I'm doing a bad job, or I think my team needs improvement. So understanding that my job as the team lead here is to really support others and to get them on the same bus. And we're doing a good job with that.
Are there any specific things challenges that you have or are still experiencing? What are some of the biggest challenges for Spectrum, related to the industry or kind of the future, whether it be staffing or technology, or
I think
what are
it's
the
a little
things
bit
that
of
you're still?
everything. I think one of the biggest challenges we've been presented in the last year is the lack of quality drawings from architects. I think when we're pretty heavily invested in the TI world, which has also experienced a big shift right now as we go away from out of the office, that certainly presents a big challenge. But I think it's just the speed of things. What we do takes time. And adding a certain amount of extra employees or more equipment or a bigger building or more overhead doesn't necessarily help with that. So I think our biggest challenge is lack of time and then managing the capacity when we're at the peak of that capacity and trying to level out the plane, which I think comes from a very diverse book of business. Of course, we would like to be specialists, but I think for self-preservation purposes, it's nice to have a lot of irons and a lot of different fires. In case one of those faucets shuts off, it doesn't put you in a really tight spot. But that's challenging too. It's hard to be good at everything. And so really, I think it goes down to what is our ideal customer profile and what is our ideal project profile, and managing to that and not allowing things that don't fit within those parameters or within our walls. Because we just know what kind of chaos it brings. Technology's been challenging. You and I've talked about this a little bit. We've upgraded some processes and some systems and some softwares. They never seem to be fully ready when you need them to. Constant education, I think, is a big thing. That's actually been one of our key focuses is education. For example, the book, The Goal. It's not a new book. We just had everybody in our operation read the book. It's more aligned and being able to look within our own processes and look what's changing. But I think the biggest challenge for us is time and making the most of our time and using the resources available to us to maximize and minimize time spent. I'm an optimistic person. It's hard to not see some of the challenges the industry or people in and around the industry have been talking about for the last 3 years, but everybody I know still seems to be very, very busy. So I think another big challenge is shutting out the noise, not letting all of the things we're told to think about outside of our businesses affect how we run and operate business. Because I think there's always going to be a spot for the best companies out there for the long haul.
Yeah, I think that's really good. So you mentioned everybody's really big. So from my perspective, I see a ton of growth still happening in this industry. There's tons of work. Obviously there's, I think, going to continue to be shops that go out of business or don't have to make money, but you're an example of a succession plan and a transfer of ownership and kind of keeping an existing business from a founder owner to new ownership. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that. We're seeing aging owners either pass their companies on or sell them, as well as rising from the ashes of some and others that just fizzle out. But at the end of the day, there's still work that this industry has to do. Somebody has to make this stuff, right?
Yep.
So would you say your outlook is positive as far as the future?
100%. I think the outlook is very positive for those that are educating themselves on where we're at and what's coming and seeing trends and patterns. The AWI conventions, they've got some speakers that come in there from outside of our industry and can give valuable data. And I think taking that data and not getting too hyper focused on the bad parts of it, business is always going to continue to move forward just as it always has. I think what's unique, and it's something we have not really had any focus on, I'm not sure how it applies to our businesses, is all the technology changes with AI and processes and systems. I still think there's a huge gap in our industry from the traditional method of doing things. An architect design firm designs it and then we redraw it and then they QC it. And then it's a slow process. And I know there's a lot of companies that have put a lot of time and effort and resources at solving those problems, and it's still there. And it just keeps getting faster and faster. So I think that's one of the big things that people need to have in their purview is how we can leverage technology. And I'm not the best at that. Technologies can be great. I don't think it can solve all problems. We're still a group of people, from all different backgrounds in the same business trying to make things work. But I'm excited to see where the industry goes. as far as that front is concerned. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, but it's to be determined, really, how that changes the industry. So there's a lot of companies out there that are bringing out some pretty awesome tools and a lot of education to raise the level, raise the bar of the industry, which I think is a good thing overall.
Yeah. Awesome. Along those lines, or you already answered this, but there's two questions I'd like to ask every guest. And the first is, what do you see changing in our industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
The need for technology, because lack of workforce, I think, is a potentially huge thing that is coming. But we've been pretty fortunate and had not had much within our workforce. Again, we're a small, medium company. We're not a large company. So I think embracing that technology, what's the average age in a construction trade right now? I think is 51. In 10 years, I heard a statistic, I think yesterday, for every 10 people or every 100 people leaving the industry, only one is getting in. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was a very interesting parallel that how many people are getting out of the industry and getting in. So again, looking at technology and how we can improve processes. I think the second part of that is companies that want to survive and do well need to really enhance their onboarding and training processes. Get out there to the trade schools, the high schools, the colleges, because there are some great young people out there. We've got a couple of them here that, and it's surprising when you find that right one, and allowing them to learn as fast as possible and to take, whether it's the shop floor, moving to the office, or moving from an office position to one day being an owner of a company, is always be looking to enhance everybody else out there. I see those are big challenges, is labor long-term, and then leveraging technology to enhance that challenge or to help combat it.
On the flip side of that, second question, what do you see staying the same over the next 5 to 10 years in our industry?
The need for work, I think, is going to stay the same. It's still going to require people. So as much as we want to talk about technology, we're never going to get out of needing qualified people to do the work that we're doing. I don't think those have to be woodworking people all the time, especially for office-based positions. We've been able to bring a couple of folks on that have no industry experience. And I'm okay with that because I'm one of those people. I think the market is going to be good for the companies that are good. And again, I'm an optimistic person. I think there's a lot of good things coming for a lot of companies and a lot of industries. I do think this momentary shift out of the office will change, just like it has in the past 2 decades. I think people realize that good things happen when people are together and communicating in an office environment or a shop environment together. We're not like a remote company where we can have people all over the place. We have to be in a shop to build stuff. And so I think embracing that and using that as an advantage can help us move forward as a company and a culture.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing those thoughts, and your insights I think are really valuable for everybody listening. What if people want to find out more about Spectrum, what's the best way for them to find out more or contact you?
Our website, spectrumwoodworking.com. I'm trying to do a lot better job of staying involved in mixing with my peers and conversating with my peers, because I think there's a lot of great relationships out there where we can all help each other out a little bit. But I think the website is the best way for people to get a hold of us and to get a hold of me. And love to have conversations with people. If there's people out there, somebody that might be struggling, or I love having a conversation with people and offering some of my experience to help we can make it better for them. That'd be great.
I'll make sure we'll link that in the show notes so it's easy for people to get there. I really appreciate your time and always enjoy talking with you, Josh, and look forward to continuing and probably having you on again in the future.
Awesome. I appreciate the opportunity. Love the podcast. Trying to get everybody in our shop to start listening. Again, this is another great educational piece. You're doing something different than others are doing. And I commend you for taking on that challenge. I know a lot of people are loving what you're putting out there. Happy to contribute, and best of luck, man, until we talk next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do you want to stay up to date about industry insights, new content, and our community of millworkers? Go to DuckWorksMW.com to sign up for our newsletter. I'll see you in the next episode of Verify in Field.